What if I told you the person you're trying to become already exists, just not in your current identity? Right now, you're not stuck because of your situation. You're stuck because of who you think you are. And that belief, it's quietly controlling every decision, every habit, every result in your life. Here's the truth most people never realize. Reality doesn't shape your identity. Your identity shapes your reality. That means if you keep acting like your old self, you'll keep getting the same life no matter how hard you try. But what if you could flip this completely? What if you could step into a new identity first and then watch your world slowly catch up? In this video, you're going to learn exactly how to do that, how to become the version of yourself that already has everything you want. You don't get what you want in life, you get what you believe you are. And that's the part most people completely miss. They think the problem is outside, money, opportunities, luck, connections. But the real problem is internal. It's identity. The silent story you repeat about yourself every single day. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, someone who is not that confident, someone who always falls short, then no matter what opportunities come your way, you'll find a way to stay in that same pattern, not consciously, but automatically. Because your brain is designed to keep your identity consistent. It doesn't care if it's a bad identity or a good one, it just wants it to stay familiar. That's why people sabotage themselves right when things start going well. That's why someone gets a chance but suddenly procrastinates. Or they start improving but then fall back into old habits. It's not laziness. It's not lack of discipline. It's identity trying to protect itself. Think about it like this. If you believe you're not a disciplined person, then every time you try to act disciplined, it feels uncomfortable, almost wrong. So what do? You go back to what feels normal. You quit, you delay, you distract yourself, and then you say, see, this is just who I am. But that's not truth, that's conditioning. Your identity is built from your past experiences, your environment, what people told you, and what you kept repeating. At some point, you accepted a version of yourself and now you're living inside it like a script. The problem is that script is outdated. It was created by an older version of you, and now it's limiting your future. Here's the powerful shift. You don't need to fix your entire life. You need to upgrade your identity. Because once your identity changes, your decisions change automatically. You don't have to force yourself to work hard if you see yourself as a hard-working person. You don't have to chase confidence if you believe you are confident. It becomes natural. Right now, your results are simply a reflection of your identity, nothing more. If you want different results, you don't start with actions. You start with self-image. Ask yourself honestly, who do I believe I am? Not what you want to be, not what you say in public. But deep down, what do you truly believe? Because that belief is shaping everything. And here's the truth most people avoid. As long as you keep identifying with your old self, your life will keep repeating itself. New goals won't matter. Motivation won't last. Because you're trying to create a new life with an old identity, and that never works. So the real work begins here, not outside, inside. Change the way you see yourself, and you'll start changing the way you live without even trying. Because in the end, your identity isn't just a belief, it's a blueprint. And right now, it's either building your future or holding it back. Most people live by one simple rule: I'll believe it when I see it. It sounds logical. It feels safe. But this mindset is exactly why so many people stay stuck for years. Because if you only believe in what you can already see, you will never create anything new. You'll just keep repeating the same reality over and over again. Think about it. If your current life is the result of your current beliefs, then waiting for external proof before changing those beliefs is like waiting for a result without changing the cause. It doesn't work. It can't work. Because reality doesn't lead, it follows. The people who actually change their lives understand something deeper. You have to believe first, even when there is no evidence. That's the uncomfortable part. That's where most people quit. Because your mind will fight you. It will say, "This isn't real. You're lying to yourself. Look at your current situation." And if you listen to that voice, you go right back to your old identity. But here's what's really happening. Your brain is simply trying to protect what's familiar. It's not trying to help you grow, it's trying to keep you consistent. So when you start thinking like a new version of yourself, it feels strange. It feels fake. It feels like you're pretending. And most people take that feeling as a sign to stop. But it's actually the opposite. That discomfort is proof you're stepping outside your old identity. If you want to become someone new, you have to be willing to think and act without immediate proof. You have to move before the results show up. That's the shift. Instead of asking, "Where's the evidence?" start asking, "Who do I need to become?" Because once you decide that, everything else begins to align. Imagine someone who wants to be confident. If they wait to feel confident before they act, they'll stay stuck forever. But if they start speaking, moving, and deciding as if they are already confident, even when it feels uncomfortable, they begin to rewire their identity. Over time, their actions create results, and those results become the evidence they were waiting for. So the evidence doesn't come first, it comes later. This is why faith, whether you call it belief, assumption, or conviction, is so powerful. It allows you to move without seeing the full picture. It allows you to stay consistent when nothing outside has changed yet. And that consistency is what eventually creates visible results. But here's the catch. There is always a delay. You might start showing up as your future self today, but your external reality might still look the same for a while. And this is the exact moment where most people give up. They say, "Nothing is working," and go back to their old patterns. What they don't realize is they were just about to break through, because reality was already shifting, just not fast enough for them to trust the process. So if you truly want change, you have to stop using your current reality as a measuring tool. It's outdated, it reflects your past identity, not your new one. Instead, you have to stay loyal to the version of yourself you've decided to become, even when there's no proof, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when your mind doubts it. Because the moment you stop waiting for evidence is the moment you start creating it. And once it shows up, it won't feel like magic. It will feel like something you already knew was coming. Most people spend their entire lives thinking from their current situation instead of thinking from where they want to be. And that one mistake quietly controls everything. Because your thoughts create your decisions create your actions, and your actions create your life. So if your thinking stays the same, your life stays the same, no matter how badly you want change. Here's the shift that changes everything. Instead of asking, "What should I do based on where I am right now?" start asking, "What would the version of me who already has my dream life think and do in this moment?" That question alone can rewire your entire mindset. Your future self already exists as a possibility. It's the version of you who is more confident, more focused, more disciplined, and more certain. That version doesn't overthink small decisions, doesn't hesitate every time fear shows up, doesn't wait for perfect conditions. They move with clarity because they already see themselves differently. But right now, you're not thinking like that version, you're thinking like your past. You're making decisions based on old experiences, old failures, and old beliefs. So even when a new opportunity comes, you respond with old thinking. You doubt it, you question it, you hesitate, and just like that, you recreate the same result. This is why thinking like your future self is so powerful. It breaks that cycle. For example, imagine your future self is successful, disciplined, and financially free. Now ask yourself, would that version of you waste hours scrolling without purpose? Would they avoid difficult tasks? Would they speak negatively about themselves? Probably not. So why are you? That's the gap. And that gap is where transformation happens. When you start borrowing the mindset of your future self, your behavior begins to shift automatically. You start making decisions that feel unfamiliar but aligned. You choose growth over comfort. You take action even when it's uncomfortable, and slowly your identity begins to change. Now, here's the important part. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to act like your future self 24/7. That's not realistic. What matters is consistency. Every time you pause and ask, what would my future self do right now? You interrupt your old pattern and create a new one. And over time, those small shifts compound. At first, it feels like effort. You have to remind yourself. You have to catch your old thinking. But eventually, it becomes natural, because your brain adapts to what you repeatedly practice. The more you think like your future self, the more that identity starts to feel real. And once it feels real, it becomes your default. Another powerful part of this is emotional control. Your future self doesn't panic over small setbacks. They don't collapse after one failure. They understand that growth takes time. So when something goes wrong, instead of reacting with frustration, they respond with focus. They adjust. They keep moving. If you can adopt just that one trait, staying calm and focused, instead of emotional and reactive, you'll already be ahead of most people. Because success is not just about actions. It's about how you think under pressure. So from now on, stop letting your current situation define your mindset. Start letting your desired future define it. Think from where you're going, not from where you are. Because the moment your thinking changes, your direction changes. And when your direction changes, your life has no choice but to follow. This is the part where most people hesitate, and also the part that creates the biggest transformation. Acting as if sounds simple, but when you actually try to do it, it feels uncomfortable, unnatural, even fake. And that's exactly why it works. Because if it feels natural, you're still operating from your old identity. Think about it. Your current habits, reactions, and behaviors all come from the version of you that already exists. So when you suddenly start acting like a more confident, disciplined, focused version of yourself, your mind immediately resists. It says, this isn't you. You're pretending. You'll go back to normal anyway. And most people listen to that voice. But what they don't understand is this. Every new identity feels fake in the beginning. No one is born confident. No one is naturally disciplined from day one. At some point, every high performer had to act beyond their comfort zone before it became part of who they are. The difference is they didn't stop when it felt strange. They kept going. Acting as if is not about lying to yourself. It's about practicing the behavior of the person you want to become. It's about stepping into that role before your mind fully accepts it. Because identity is not something you wait for, it's something you build through repetition. Let's make this real. If you want to become confident, don't wait until you feel confident. Start speaking clearly. Hold eye contact. Make decisions without over-explaining yourself. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your voice might shake. Your mind might overthink. But every time you do it, you're sending a signal to your brain. This is who I am now. And your brain adapts to that signal. The same goes for discipline. If you identify as someone who procrastinates, then naturally, you'll delay things. But if you start acting like a disciplined person, finishing tasks on time, showing up consistently, doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it, you begin to shift your identity. Not through motivation, but through action. This is where most people get it wrong. They wait to feel ready before they act. But readiness is created through action, not before it. Now, here's the key. Consistency matters more than intensity. You don't need to act like your future self in extreme ways. You don't need to suddenly change everything overnight. What matters is small, repeated actions that align with your new identity. Because repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates belief. At first, it feels fake, then it feels possible, then it feels normal, and finally it becomes who you are. Another important truth, people around you might not understand this shift. They're used to the old version of you. So when you start acting differently, they might question it. They might say, You've changed. And you have. That's the point. Growth requires you to step out of the identity others expect from you. You're not here to stay comfortable, you're here to evolve. So don't be discouraged by the discomfort. Don't see it as a sign to stop. See it as proof that you're stepping into something new. Because the moment you start acting like the person you want to become, even when it feels fake, is the moment your identity begins to change. And once your identity changes, everything else follows. Every person is living inside a story, and most don't even realize it. It's the quiet voice in your head that says, "This is just how I am. I've always been like this. I'm not the kind of person who succeeds. I tried before, it didn't work." That story feels real. It feels logical. It even feels true. But here's the truth that changes everything. It's not your reality. It's your repetition. At some point in your life, something happened. Maybe you failed. Maybe someone told you something negative. Maybe you compared yourself to others and felt behind. And instead of letting that moment pass, you turned it into a belief. Then you repeated that belief so many times, it became your identity. Now it runs in the background, quietly controlling your decisions. That's why every time you try to move forward, something pulls you back. You start something new, but your mind whispers, "This won't last." You see an opportunity, but your thoughts say, "You're not ready." You get close to progress, but suddenly you doubt yourself. That's not coincidence. That's your old story defending itself. Because your mind always tries to prove your identity right. If your story is "I'm not consistent," your brain will look for evidence to confirm it. You'll miss a day and immediately think, "See, I knew it." If your story is "I'm bad with money," you'll make decisions that keep you in that pattern. Not because you want to fail, but because your identity is trying to stay consistent. So if you want a new life, you can't just add new habits on top of an old story. You have to remove the story itself. And here's where it gets real. You can't do this halfway. You can't say, "I'm confident now, but sometimes I'm still the old me." You can't say, "I believe in myself, but deep down I still doubt it." That split identity creates conflict, and conflict creates inconsistency. Transformation only happens when you make a clean break. You have to decide, that version of me is no longer who I am. Not slowly, not someday. Now, and yes, your mind will resist. It will bring up memories. It will remind you of past failures. It will try to convince you that your old story is just being realistic. But understand this clearly. Your past is not proof of your future. It's just a record of who you used to be. You're allowed to outgrow it. In fact, you're supposed to. Think about it. If a movie character never changed their story, there would be no growth, no transformation, no success. They would stay stuck in the same place. But the moment the character decides, "This is not my identity anymore," everything shifts. Their actions change. Their confidence rises. Their path opens up. Your life works the same way. You are not your past habits. You are not your past failures. You are not the labels you accepted years ago. Those were chapters, not the whole story. But if you keep reading from the same page, nothing new will happen. So here's what you do. Catch the old story when it shows up. When your mind says, "I can't," stop it, replace it. When it says, "This always happens to me," challenge it, interrupt it. Don't let it run on autopilot. Because every time you repeat the old story, you strengthen it. And every time you reject it, you weaken it. Over time, that voice loses power, and a new one takes its place. A voice that says, "This is who I am now." A voice that supports your growth instead of limiting it. That's when real change begins. Because the moment you kill the old story, you create space for a new identity. And that new identity, that's where your future is waiting. This is the point where most people give up, even when they're doing everything right. They start thinking differently. They act like their future self. They drop their old story. But then they look around, and nothing has changed yet. Same environment, same results, same problems. And that's when doubt creeps in. Maybe this doesn't work. Maybe I'm just fooling